Hi, this is Sugandha Arora. I am a technical lead in Salesforce Center of Innovation. I have been working over in DaVita for about 2.5 years. So in this presentation, I will cover two new processes. We have launched one for the entire software application lifecycle management and one for resource management to manage our intake projects as well as our internal projects. So the challenge we were facing within our Salesforce Center of Innovation was that we were getting tremendous amount of new requests from our 25 plus business groups that we manage within Salesforce, but there was no proper process to intake these new projects or provide a definite set of resources and timeline around these. We also have limited resources, a small Salesforce team. So we were following a haphazard process on working through all these requests, resulting in heavy stress on the Salesforce team for striving hard to meet expectations in terms of deadlines. So besides these project requests from the business groups, we also have a good number of internal projects that we have to manage and regularly roll out. These include things like org cleanup, which is critical in maintaining our Salesforce org so that we don't hit any Salesforce limits. Data cleanup and data integrity maintenance work, which is to maintain our master databases like providers and facilities, etc. Besides this, we are working on launching a brand new super user community, which Sweden is going to present in a different demo. Knowledge to roll out training resources, which Eric is going to present. Lightning migration is another big project. Lightning is a new framework released by Salesforce, which is faster and provides much better look and feel and more out-of-the-box features. And this project entails migrating all existing Salesforce applications from Classic to Lightning and so on. You can see there are many other internal projects. So as you can see, we have a lot of work to do. However, what was missing was a proper process to intake new projects in such a way that we can work on multiple projects parallelly. And also what was missing was a proper resource alignment process so that we can appropriately assign resources to all the projects that are intaken. And also so that the resources are properly utilized in the sense that everyone has optimum amount of work to do, not too much and not too little. Also, another challenge was to report to management about how resources are spending their time and also being able to forecast and provide timelines for new projects. So next slide, I will take you through the solution to this first challenge of not having a proper intake process. So to solve these challenges, as mentioned before, we have come up with this new ALM, Application Lifecycle Management process, that covers all phases of Agile software development. All our projects are developed currently in an Agile manner, which follows a 2-week sprint. This new process clearly defines the steps involved from the time intake is submitted to the next steps, which are discovery, where high-level pain points, objectives, and features are discussed. And next key steps are the architecture review, the development in sprint, deployment to QA, and finally, after we deploy the project to production, we ask super users to submit a survey. You can see each of these boxes are color-coded. The color code is based on who is responsible to complete this step. In this way, roles and expectations are clearly defined for the different members of the team involved, like the project manager, project owner, scrum master, architect, tech lead, and developer. And the general guidelines are also provided around how much time it should take to go through the step. As mentioned over here, for example, when the intake form is first submitted, within 2 weeks of that, we should do an initial review of the project with the business group that submitted the intake. So after the initial discovery and the architecture design review, we have added a step to provide recommendations, estimates on timelines, start date, and cost for this project. Now these recommendations, right in this step right here, these recommendations pertain to whether this project can be developed by the COI team or because of the complexity and the work involved, external consultants need to be hired. Also, since we have multiple intake projects, we have to understand the relative value and complexity of projects to understand which projects we should work on first. High value and low complexity projects are given highest priority, and low value and high complexity projects are given the lowest priority. And we meet as a team to have this discussion once in 2 weeks, and we take up new projects and put them in our pipeline. So if the business agrees to the start date of the project, etc., the start date is finalized, and then and that way the project comes into our pipeline. And when the project is taken up for development on the assigned start date, Scrum Master is assigned resources like the admin, developer, QA, and then development happens in the 2-week sprints and includes a daily Scrum call. So every effort is made to deliver projects within the estimated time frame that was originally agreed to in this step. And following proper release management process that Malika is going to show in a different demo, the project is deployed to prod. Release notes are created by Scrum Master and sent to the user groups to inform end users about new features and applications that are deployed to production. We also send a survey, as mentioned before, to the product owner to fill out and give us their feedback on our intake and development process so that we can improve as we continue to use this system. So we have defined this new intake process, and we have implemented it and are currently monitoring it on a daily basis. So with this new system, we can report accurately on the status of all intake projects, what stage they are on, and who is the Scrum Master and the developer assigned to the project, and what is the timeline for the project, etc. The next slide, I will take you through the solution to the second challenge, which is about resource alignment. So the challenge number 2, which was a resource management issue we discussed before, for that, this outcome management process is created. Outcome for us is a task or a deliverable that is assigned to a team member within the 2-week sprint. Outcome can be of type intake, means it's coming from the intake management process, or of type case, means it's coming from the case support system, or of type deployment, means it's coming from the release management process. Outcome of type intake is for the development related to bigger projects, while the small requests are handled by the case management system. Every person has to reach about 32 story points, or around 60 hours worth of work for the 2-week sprint, and about 45 story points worth of work for 3-week sprint. So sometimes we have a 2-week sprint and sometimes 3-week sprint. We have given 10 hours a week on average to each person as buffer time spent in meetings and other activities. This way, team is not under stress and we lay down the expectations properly. So on Friday, before the sprint starts, all team members enter their outcomes for next sprint and we discuss it as a team. And on the last day of the sprint, we review the status of all outcomes. You can see the dashboard of all outcomes grouped by all team members right here. But this entire dashboard is for all our intakes, all intakes that have been submitted and what stage they are in, work in progress intakes as well as new intakes. So as you can see with this process, there is clear visibility to the management, how the pipeline is looking like, and for this current sprint, what are the tasks that each of the teammates are assigned. I will show this in the demo how you can drill down on this dashboard further to go into further details. So with this dashboard, Salesforce Center of Innovation can forecast the work for the entire year and properly assign resources for any new projects. So now let's drill down into the demo. Here is the intake dashboard that I was showing in the presentation. Here we have all intakes that have been submitted, grouped by the stages that they are currently on. Let's drill down into the report. So we can see that there are 12 new intakes. Each intake has been assigned a Scrum Master, see right here. Initially, there is information about the business unit that submitted the intakes. You can see some of the intakes relate to Salesforce COI. These are internal projects. These are internal projects. there is the project name right here, whether the project is internal or external, who's the product owner, and when it was first submitted. So there are different stages that the intake project goes through. See right here, we have the stage of new, and then it's reviewed and priority established, and goes to discovery complete, discovery documents complete, architecture complete, sprint in progress when we actually start developing on that intake, release to prod, and finally survey complete. So in this report, you can drill down into intake project. You can see the details of the intake project, who submitted the intake. Shannon Smith, for example, here from Davita at Home submitted this intake to build a dashboard, provided requested start and complete date, has executive summary, project description, scope, etc. And here we can also see the same intake in the PDF format that was submitted by the user. So for the business users, we have an external form that we have created to submit the intake. This is the external form. Anybody can access this form. They don't need to be a Salesforce user. So basically, it's a simple form to provide us requirements on the intake project. So when the users fill out the form and hit submit here, filling out all the required fields, a record gets created in Salesforce as an intake record. So you can see right here, as an intake record, the record gets created in Salesforce. So the status of the intake, as I said, can move through the different stages, but finally when the status of the project is set to release to prod, automatically workflows will fire from Salesforce to send an email to the product owner to remind them to take a survey. So I'll show you an example of the survey. This survey is built on Get Feedback tool that integrates with Salesforce. So you see we have some questions here. When the user fills out the survey and hits submit, because Get Feedback is integrated with Salesforce, the record gets created in Salesforce and attached to the original survey. So I'll show you an example. So some of the intakes that have the survey complete, you can see have the status of survey complete. Show you an example of an intake where the survey was complete. You can see in the details over here, the project survey response. This is an example of a survey that was completed by Shannon Smith for this project that is related to the dashboard project that we were showing before. So she has mentioned that she provided a rating of 5 and comments the experience was very easy and efficient, was done quicker than I thought, which is a great feedback. So as you can see, this is how we track the surveys, and we track all our intake projects via this report. Let's get back to the intake. This is a view of all our intakes and the different stages, a different view, and this view is called the Kanban view. So what we do as a team is we meet once in 2 weeks and we review all the intakes in the different stages, and then we take up a project. We take up the project in our pipeline and we move them to the next stage. So yeah, this is a Kanban view of the intake project, intake forms, and what we do is we meet once in 2 weeks as a team, and we move the intake projects to the next stage in the pipeline as we discussed through. So this is a very nice view. So let's talk about the outcomes now. So these are the sprint outcomes. Here you can see the tasks that are assigned to each person in the team for this current sprint. There are 3 types of outcomes. We have intake, case support, and deployment support. Let's drill down on my tasks. So you see I have tasks related to intake, and these outcomes or tasks, they are related to the intake project. So for example, we have this project of lightning migration, one project at a time. Here is the intake that this project has with all the description details about the project. And then we have case support tasks. And then we have the deployment task. So for each of these outcomes, you can drill down into a particular outcome and see, these are all the details that the teammate needs to provide for that task or outcome, the type of the outcome, the role that they are playing, the story points assigned, the status, and what they plan to deliver at the end of the sprint. And then when the status of the outcome, as you can see, can be in progress, not started, completed, moved to next sprint. So if the teammate is not able to complete the task and it is moved to next sprint, at that point it becomes required to enter the reason for moving to next sprint. And this is carefully monitored, and we meet once in 2 weeks to discuss the outcomes at the end of the sprint, what the status of the outcomes are for all team members. So in this way, everyone is accountable for all the tasks that are assigned to them at the beginning of the sprint, and we do not take any additional work in the middle of the sprint. This way, team is focused on all the deliverables, and there is less confusion and better efficiency at work. Let's go back to the presentation. So we believe that as we continue to use this process, we will have fast and efficient delivery of new applications and features, which will lead to greater adoption of Salesforce platform. This model can also be adopted by other large business groups such as Village Health, Eagle, and Jarvis, who have their own Salesforce team, the developers, analysts, and QA resources. And in fact, Village Health has started to use this to manage their dev resource tasks for each sprint. We will in the future work on integrating tasks with Jira as well, since some of the resources of other teams already are using Jira to record their tasks. So in this way, we can bring tasks of all team members within Salesforce, and we can build a more comprehensive report. We will also start to align outcomes with KPIs of team members' individual goals. So in summary, as we discussed, there were several challenges in properly managing intake projects coming from several business groups as well as our own internal projects. We discussed the new application lifecycle management process that defines steps involved from taking up the new project to discovery and architecture, development, deployment, finally the survey, sending of the survey. Also, we talked about the outcome process where tasks for each teammate is tracked for every 2 weeks. So with these two processes that we discussed today, we have already seen tremendous improvement with intake pipeline moving through the different stages in a faster manner. And we have better resource alignment process and better forecasting and timeline estimation for new projects. We also discussed the future initiatives to expand these processes to allow other user groups to use it to manage their own Salesforce resources. Ultimately, we are looking to provide service excellence to all our business groups. Thank you so much for watching this demo.